Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome to another episode of Disney Assembled. I'm Troy.
And I'm Mimi.
And we are your happy little father-daughter podcast, here to create joy and share our love for all things Disney.
Disney Assembled is sponsored by our patrons over on Patreon. If you would like to join them, check out patreon.com/DisneyAssembled.
Yeah, I would really appreciate your consideration for that. Membership starts at only $2 a month, and with that, you get access to all the stuff that we post over there on Patreon. Some of it very exclusive, only to patrons, and some of it just keeping in touch, right? All right.
Yeah.
We're recording this episode on Sunday, October the 5th, 2025. I believe this is episode 286 as the march towards 300 continues, the journey to 300. I forgot to mention that last episode about we're officially on 300 episode watch. So we're inching just that much closer. If we can stick to our schedule, we'll get there by early January, first or second week of January, maybe 2026.
Yeah.
So yeah, excited for that. Mimi, I know, yesterday was Saturday, which meant college football. We don't have to talk about that. I can tell by the look on your face that you're feeling what many of the people who go to school with you feel. Yeah, not so good.
It was an abysmal showing. We are unranked this week. I knew we were going to be unranked. We lost to Florida. We played horribly. I knew we were going to be unranked. It still hurts just the same as when I saw it. We're lower than Cincinnati, guys. Like, come on.
No offense to our listeners from Cincinnati, but
yeah, but like, come on. Like, we went into this season favored to win the national championship. Arch Manning was the top quarterback in the entire country. He was the favorite to win the Heisman, and we are unranked.
Well, I don't want to have a whole episode about this, but I will tell you that the hype is hard for people. I think the fact that there's so much money now being paid to college athletes, it's a lot going on. And of course, being preseason number one, a preseason Heisman favorite, generally doesn't work out. Usually those teams and those people don't win the award. They don't win the national championship. So, yeah, it is what it is. I think one of the,
this isn't a college football podcast, but I will say two of my thoughts. Arch Manning didn't play well. No, he did not. And I'm not going to pretend like he did. But the O-line wasn't exactly helping either yesterday. And then secondly, I think people are very quick to forget that this is still a rebuild year for us. It doesn't matter who our second string quarterback is. Like, we lost pretty much most of our offense, a good amount of our defense to the NFL draft last year. And when you have a highly successful season like that and you graduate a ton of your starters or you lose a bunch of your starters, that is a rebuild year regardless of who your new quarterback is. I think it's just all eyes on Texas because he obviously wears the Manning name across his jersey and there's some level of expectation there. But, he's still clearly, the whole team is still clearly developing, the connection, the chemistry that last year's team had, right? And we'll get there, but you could remove Arch and put in some other second string quarterback from some other school, and I think we would be in essentially the same position because it's a brand new offensive situation for the most part.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. And of course, this is not the only podcast that we can hear, Mimi. Do you want to share with everyone?
I
was very proud of you. I listened to it. Do you want to tell everybody where else you may be heard on the podcast world?
Yeah, so I talked about this a lot more last fall, but I am a senior audio reporter for the Daily Texan, which is one of the most renowned school newspapers in the country. We have obviously an audio department. I do podcasting for them, and I recently had my third episode come out, and I've got a fourth on the way. But I interviewed Gracie Williams, who is the Longhorn featured twirler. So she is the baton girl for the band. and she's very cool. And so I interviewed her, and that episode came out on Friday. So if you want to listen to it, you'll obviously no pressure, but Daily Text and Audio on Spotify, it's the top story.
Yeah, there you go. And if you're not sure what a preferred twirler, is that what it was? The preferred twirler?
The featured
is that
twirler.
the term?
The
featured twirler. Do some YouTube searches or social media searches. You'll be able to see what Gracie does for Texas at UT football. I saw it in person. It's very cool. Flaming
it is cool.
batons. So it's all
She
good
is
stuff.
Very
So yeah,
cool.
it was a great interview. Congratulations for that. I know you've worked really hard and you were excited for that interview. And this is an exclusive. You said there's a fourth one in the works. I didn't know there was a fourth one in the works. So our Disney Assembled fans, that's sort of an exclusive announcement from you. Right. So there you go.
Yeah, I already have my next subject in mind. I reached out to her last week, actually, and she was like, can you get back to me on Monday with the questions you want to ask? And then I didn't do that. So I need to follow up with her. But that's part of what I like about student journalism. Like, everyone knows that we're students and busy and things happen. So,
right.
Yes, if I can confirm that, I will announce. But yeah. Back on the Disney stuff, I guess similar in a similar vein to my work, my Disney hot take about Galaxy's Edge landed on our TikTok, and we got quite a bit of interaction there. And you know, I love when people, randos, fans, you guys like interact on the TikTok. When it's respectful, one of the comments just says, "Can you chill?" And it's like, no, I can't. I am incapable of chilling about this, unfortunately. Sorry. But there was a good amount of discourse in the comments, and that's okay. I like discourse. I like when people agree to a point or disagree to a point, and I'm happy to talk about it. So I guess really the point of all this is that this week we are going to look at one of the top comments on that video that got a lot of interaction from other people was, well, you could make this same argument about any immersive land in Walt Disney World. So we're going to do just that. We're going to put the same argument to the test with every immersive world that exists in the U.S. parks. This includes Cars Land, Avengers Campus, Galaxy's Edge, Toy Story Land, and Pandora. And we're just going to be talking about the accessibility of these lands for people who may not be familiar with the story, accessibility when it comes to having small children, accessibility when it comes to food, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see if my argument about Galaxy's Edge holds up.
Yep. Yeah, and I do appreciate the people who are following us on social media. They follow us on TikTok and all the other places. And I would agree with you. I would say over 90% of the interaction we get is respectful. And even if they don't agree with us, it's perfectly fine. They say, hey, you're out of your mind. You know, I don't agree with you. We even put one out where I made a comment about the WWE. And a lot of people chimed in on that particular video too, because there's a lot of really passionate WWE fans out there. They know a lot more of it about it than I do, certainly than you do. I used to watch wrestling back in the maybe early 90s, right? But hey, I mean, it's great. You have an opinion, you want to share it. We're all for that. You know, people have been respectful and they've contributed to the dialogue. And it actually, and like I said, like you just said, the interaction this past week has helped us, rethink maybe some of our opinions about some of the immersive places and sparked a conversation that we're going to have this week. So that's great. We also
kind of. I'm really standing on business with my Toy Story Land comment. I really don't disagree with anything that I said, but some of the comments that you guys put on there did make me consider some alternative views. Yeah. I just think that I'm correct.
Well, we'll look at things today we'll look at the dining options. We'll look at maybe what is there in terms of attractions and in character interactions and all these other things. So we'll get a sense of what these immersive lands offer to, small children, families, and so forth. We'll have that conversation here in just a bit. We have a trivia question answer from last episode that we have to get to. We have a new trivia question at the end of this episode. And of course, in between the trivia and the conversation and everything else, we also have to have our Disney dad joke of this episode of this week. So, Mimi, are you ready to jump into things with the answer to last episode's trivia question?
Yes, I am. So this week or last week's trivia question was, what is the name of Gonzo's chicken on the Muppet Show? And the answer, of course, is Camilla. Camilla the chicken. I thought in later iterations of the Muppets they were a couple, and that she wasn't like Gonzo's
I don't
pet
think so.
chicken.
Nah,
Maybe
I
I'm
think
like
she was
totally.
always like, yeah, I think it was his
Maybe
pet
I'm like
chicken. I
making
don't
that
think
up.
they were ever a couple. Yeah.
Maybe
It
making
is
that
a
up.
strange relationship there, certainly, for sure. And I will say this, I believe a couple people got the answer right. One that, and I'm not looking at them right now, but one I know got the answer right was our friend Chris Mazza from the Mazza's Musings podcast, who said Camilla the chicken. So congratulations to everyone who knew the answer to last episode's Disney trivia question. Congratulations to you. You are among the smartest people we know. Of course, the smartest people we know also appreciate a good joke. And so before we jump into our conversation about the immersive lands and continue sort of our train of thought on those things, we do have to have our Disney dad joke of the week. So Mimi, are you ready for this week's Disney dad joke of the week?
I am.
All right, ladies, gentlemen, Disney fans of all sorts, it is time for this week's Disney dad joke of the week. Mimi, do you know why custodial cast members at Disney parks are randomly drug tested?
No.
Because they refuse to put up with high maintenance people.
Okay. That's kind of a PG-13 one.
High maintenance people. So
that's a little more PG-13 than we normally do. That's good.
I don't know if it's PG-13. There's no cussing in there, right? But it's
true. It's just like
the
adult theme. Yeah, that's okay.
Listen, that is this week's Disney Dad Joke of the Week. Whether you liked it or not, that was it. If you have a better one you'd like us to consider using in the show, you can send it to us. The email that I'm pointing at right now, if you're watching the video version of this, disneyassembled@gmail.com. Send it to us. If it's family friendly, even if it's, I would consider what I said this week somewhat family friendly, right? So if it's family friendly and you'd like us to consider using it on the show, go ahead and send it to us. We'll be happy to take a look at it, give it some consideration, and bring it to the masses. Yes. If that's what you want. All right. There are lands. Some lands are more immersive than others. Today, we're going to talk about a number of them that most people would consider among the most immersive in the United States domestic Disney parks. And just like what you were talking about last week, because I believe the hot take was Toy Story Land is better than Galaxy's Edge. And we talked about that hot take. And you went into the piece about how Galaxy's Edge is more exclusive and is really mostly geared towards Star Wars fans, right? So it sparked some conversation because some people said, hey, my grandmother, my kids, my wife, none of them are Star Wars fans, and they love Galaxy's Edge. They love going there. They love doing this, that, and the other thing. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Do you want to start in Galaxy's Edge, or do you want to start somewhere else?
Yeah, I think starting in Galaxy's Edge is, I think that's the natural transition, starting in Galaxy's Edge. I actually want to address that comment in particular, or like that, not that comment, but like that brand of comment. Because there were quite a few that were like, I don't know anything about Star Wars and I love Galaxy's Edge. I guess my point, and I guess I didn't make it super clear, isn't that you can't enjoy Galaxy's Edge if you don't understand Star Wars. You will not be able to maximize your enjoyment if you don't know what's going on. I think even like removing the whole part about like knowing where in the galaxy you are, like on Batuu, like I don't even think that is really what I'm getting at. I think the whole like story of Rise of the Resistance, you can enjoy the ride and think that it's fun, but I don't think it makes any sense unless you know who the characters are and generally know what's going on. The comment that I saw that definitely did sway me, like, a little bit away from my opinion, is the one that was like, the Millennium Falcon is one of the most recognizable pop culture things to exist. Like, it's up there with the bat symbol. And I was like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Like, the Millennium Falcon is incredibly recognizable. But the Millennium Falcon is one of the few things in Galaxy's Edge that it has that generic Star Wars vibe to it. You know what I'm saying? I guess Rise of the Resistance, like, you could make the argument is generic because it's like Rey and like those characters, but that to me is not base levels. Like anything sequel trilogy is not base level Star Wars, because Star Wars people don't like those movies. Like I don't know. I guess you can't have it both ways. Like think, it can't be catered to Star Wars people and then also like may argue that, you know, whatever. I just think Luke and Leia and Vader are the more recognizable group of characters instead of
but not
Rey
for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, nothing is for everyone.
Right.
Nothing is truly general.
I think the point that some of the people who chimed in were making was that I don't think they fully understood what the point was that we were trying to make, which was essentially that if you look at just the attractions, Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run, neither of those attractions, those rides, are really made for small children. Right. They're not, there's not,
well, that's like
those rides are not made.
Point.
Well, it was part of the point. It was a big part of your point, right? Because we didn't talk about the character meetings. Look, little kids like meeting Chewbacca. They like meeting Rey, right? They have that other Resistance spy that runs around that no one knows who that person is. She wears like the orange jacket.
Yeah.
I don't. It's a story specifically for the land that I don't think ever really caught on, right? And of course, if you go. And some kids like meeting Kylo Ren. They're not scared of Kylo Ren. They're not scared of stormtroopers, right? Some are. Some aren't. If you go to California, I mean, you can meet Ahsoka. Of course, the Mandalorian and Grogu are now there, and kids, you know, some smaller kids might like seeing Grogu, stuff like that.
Luke is also there now. Luke and R2.
Luke is in California, yeah. But some kids may not know who Luke is because they didn't watch those movies. And it's really not about the movies. I think it's more about, I think what the point that some of the people who were chiming in were making was that you don't have to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy Galaxy's Edge, because the immersiveness of the land itself is what makes it enjoyable, regardless of the IP associated with the land. The immersiveness of the land with the sounds and the music and the characters is what makes it an enjoyable experience. And that wasn't a point that I was considering when we had this conversation. Mm-hmm. But the more I reflected on it, the more I kept saying, true, and there's not a lot specifically in the land for very small children. If you have a child in a stroller, there's not a lot for them to do in Galaxy's Edge, but they can experience it and enjoy the experience, especially if you have a child that's more of a vibe chaser, right? You don't know if your child's going to be a vibe chaser or a ride crusher. So regardless of your age, if you just like the vibes, it can be an enjoyable experience. But I agree with you. We don't need to rehash a lot of what we said last week about the food and so forth, because look, there are two things food-wise. There are only two things that I think Galaxy's Edge does great. One is the Ronto wrap, which I know you don't care for, but I really like it. And the Black Calf cold brew, right?
The Black Calf cold brew is good. The Black Calf cold brew is really good.
Anything other than that, it's kind of like, okay, you're not really there for the food. I get it, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, I would say, okay, we talked a lot about Galaxy's Edge. Do you have any final thoughts around?
Yeah, no, I wanted to kind of touch on the point. Like, I think to an extent the viewers are right. The TikTok people are right. Like, you can enjoy it just because it's immersive and it's interesting and it draws you in. And that is what makes it successful. That's why it hasn't closed. I mean, like, full stop. I am someone who likes to understand what's going on. And I thought the general public would also like to know what's going on. I guess not. I'm the kind of person that really, really enjoys, like, I want to know what's happening. And I think if you don't know what's happening in Galaxy's Edge, you can be easily flustered. Like, if I didn't know what was going on in the Star Wars universe, I would not enjoy being in Galaxy's Edge. And last little bit, I think it's hard if you don't understand how Star Wars works, I think it's easy to get lost / miss things like building a lightsaber. Like that has become, at least it started as a very underground experience that you like whatever. And like same with the droid situation, like finding those things on a map are quite difficult because it's not supposed to be labeled. It's supposed to be this secret thing. And I think that can be really hard if you don't understand that is just kind of like how Star Wars operates as a story. But it's gotten better as it's been open longer. Like they now advertise, this is where we do the lightsaber building, you know, like,
right.
So.
Well, and again, to sort of put a point on this point, it's not a binary argument that we're making. Galaxy's Edge is fine. I love it. I could spend an entire day in Galaxy's Edge. Our point is not that it's not immersive or not good. It was just that given, if you look at certain categories, I think our point was Toy Story Land was better, especially if you have small kids, than Galaxy's Edge. And that was just our opinion. And of course, some people chimed in with a different opinion. I keep adjusting the light in front of me because, you know, I got to make sure I'm doing the proper amount of aura farming as we're on video.
I would just leave the light. The light is fine.
It's not going to help the farming of my aura any, depending on the light at my point in life. All right. Okay. I'm just trying to be cool. All right. Where do you want to go next? Like, we're going to leave.
I guess we can go to Toy Story Land. And we can also sort of put a point on Toy Story Land.
All right, let me make my point about Toy Story Land. Can I make my point first about Toy Story Land? And then you can chime in.
Can you back away from your mic? Can you back away from? I say this like almost every week that you like get really close to your mic, but you have a really nice mic. I have a bad mic. There's no reason to be that close to it.
Is this better? Okay.
Yes, it is better.
This is better. Are you sure?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Am I speaking in a proper volume? Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Food in Toy Story Land is better. The Roundup barbecue, fantastic. Love it. Very immersive. Fun. If you haven't done it, you got to do it. Kids would love it. You get to be a toy. Andy's coming. Okay, now you can continue chewing. Just don't choke. I'm waiting for someone to start like in mid-swallow, the Andy's coming. It's like...
And then this probably happened.
And then when Andy leaves, then they can start the Heimlich maneuver on you, right?
Right.
The mac and cheese, the quick service. It's good. I like the food in Toy Story Land. There's also a variety of things you can do. There's a little thrill ride there, the Slinky Dog. You want a little bit of a thrill? Go on the Slinky Dog. You want to do a family-friendly sit-down trackless ride? There's the Toy Story Mania. You want something that's really fun to do for pretty much almost any age kid? You know, the alien swirling saucers. It's kind of like Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, which I guess we'll talk about when we get to Cars Land. But there's a variety of things. And the character meetings. Woody, Jesse, Buzz. These are things that, and when we said we thought Toy Story Land was better, it's because of the variety of things there that anyone in the family can do. And even if you're not a Toy Story fan or familiar with Toy Story, the land is so immersive and it brings you into Andy's backyard so well that even though I couldn't spend all day in Toy Story Land like I could Galaxy's Edge, I can see how if you're a family and you got different age kids, there's something there for everyone. So that's my take on Toy Story Land. I think it's it ranks up pretty high on my list of the most immersive, the best of the most immersive lands in Disney parks. So now that I've teed you up, put a cherry on top of this argument, please.
I'm sort of biased, I think, because I really love Toy Story Land. I would love to work there on my college program. I could spend all day in Toy Story Land. It is my favorite area of any Disney park. Taking my emotions away taking away how I feel about it, I prefer it to Galaxy's Edge. Kind of, you hit the nail on the head because of the variety. Feel like generally there is more variety in what you can do there. Slinky Dog, it does pack a pretty decent punch, like for a kids coaster. Because it's not really a kids coaster. It's like an older kids coaster, I guess. You know, it packs a decent punch. I always enjoy it. I'm happy to stand in line for it. I'm also happy to buy a lightning lane for it. I'm perfectly content doing that. Toy Story Mania is a cult classic. Never, can't skip it. Gotta love it. And then Aliens Rolling Saucers, I could skip, but you're right. Like it does have a draw for kids of all ages. Truly, like kids of all ages, the young and the young at heart. Like when I took my best friends when we graduated from high school, we wrote it and we loved it. We wrote it twice, like at 18. And I think that that Toy Story Land does have that more variety in attractions. I also think the characters in general have more of an emotional draw sort of across the board than Star Wars does. But I can admit that maybe that's not a great take, and that I just grew up in a Pixar household, and that there are definitely people who grew up in Star Wars households and have that same emotional connection to like Chewbacca as I do to Jessie. The objective thing, also similar to the variety, is the food. You touched on this. The food is much better in Toy Story Land. Andy's backyard, or I'm sorry, Andy's lunchbox with the grilled cheese is great. The Roundup Barbecue gets kind of hit or miss reviews, but the experience is really fun and totally worth it. I just think Toy Story has this sort of like universal draw. I mean, I guess Star Wars does too, but I think because it's a franchise designed for children, it has a different punch, I guess, than Star Wars does. Ultimately, Star Wars is not a franchise that is a part of kids media. Toy Story is kids media, and because of that fact, it has a more, I think, invitational vibe to it. Like you could know nothing about about Toy Story and learn very quickly what's going on, versus I think in Galaxy's Edge you do have to have at least a little bit of like predetermined knowledge about Star Wars, the fact that you're not on Earth. Woody's at the front of Toy Story Land telling you like, welcome to Andy's backyard, and like then you see Jessie and Rex like on top of the build, and like Slinky Dog is like clearly like a play set, and the footprints are on the ground, versus I feel like in Galaxy's Edge you don't know you're in Batuu unless you know you're in Batuu. But I don't want to compare them. That's not the point of this. I just think that because Toy Story is specifically designed for children, it's a children's piece of media, it has a more invitational, more simple story that is easier to comprehend, which is why I find it more accessible.
I think that pretty much sums up our opinion on Toy Story Land. So good stuff.
I love
it
Toy
ranks
Story
pretty
Land.
high in your mind, though, of the better, more immersive pieces. Yeah.
It's just so much.
Right.
It's just so cute.
It is.
I love it.
Now, there were 2 areas in California, and then there's Pandora in Florida that we wanted to talk about today. I don't think there was any other lands. So you wanted to mention Cars Land, Avengers Campus, and Pandora. Those are the 3 that are left. Which one would you like to tackle next?
I think we'll stick with kids media and we'll jump to Cars. I would like to go first in talking about Cars Land. I want to preface this by saying that I don't think Piston Peak will come anywhere close to as successful and as good as Cars Land is. Cars Land is literally Radiator Springs. It is the room where it happens, okay? They've got the yellow blinky light, and they've got the lights that come on at night, and Lightning McQueen and Mater and the Cozy Cone and Flo's. Piston Peak will not match that. Okay. Actually talking about Cars Land. I think the food in Cars Land is fine. I know everyone loves the fried chicken. I don't really like fried chicken as a whole, so I'm going to kind of avoid the food conversation. But because it's universally loved, I'll just say the food in Cars Land is fine. I think similarly to Toy Story Land, it has that variety when it comes to attractions. You've got the trackless Luigi's Dancing Cars, which is so much fun. And then you've got Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, which is like the swirling saucers. And then, of course, Radiator Springs Racers, which is the thrill ride in that land. I feel, though, that Cars Land is missing an attraction. Like, whenever I walk through that area, I feel like it's missing one middle-of-the-road attraction. Like, Luigi's Dancing Cars and Mater's Junkyard definitely feel like kiddie rides, and then Radiator Springs is definitely a thrill ride, and I feel like there isn't anything in the middle of the road in Cars Land, but I wouldn't dock points off. Cars Land, I think, is definitely a land that does not hit the same if you haven't seen the movie. You'll be able to pick up on the story really fast. It's easy to comprehend. You don't have to have watched the movie to understand it or to enjoy it, similarly to the point made about Galaxy's Edge. But I do not think it could possibly feel the same way if you didn't know a single thing about cars. Because the entire land is based off of the town that the movie is set in, that is that level of nostalgia that isn't there if you don't know the movie. It's as simple as that, unfortunately. Like, you can still enjoy it and it's great, but it probably won't feel the same way. The thing that kills me about Cars Land is that instead of another attraction or another something, there are 1 million gift shops. There are 1 million gift shops in Cars Land, and I think it's weird. That's my take.
I can't speak about the food in Cars Land. I haven't eaten anything there, to be honest with you. I'll take your word for it. Some people love it. Some people... It's probably a lot like Galaxy's Edge, where there's one or two things that people point to. I mean, there's something that at the Cozy Cone, you get it like in a cone, and it's like the mac and cheese or something I've heard is highly... But I can't speak on the food there. I think when it comes to the attractions, you know, the Rollicking Roadster and the Jamboree, Junkyard Jamboree, are similar. They're sort of dancing, music, and they're pretty much almost all ages. Not technically, it's not an all ages attraction, but it's something for everyone. I could make the argument that Radiator Springs Racers is the best attraction in any of the immersive lands we're going to talk about today. I would make the case that you could say that Radiator Springs Racers, its immersiveness and the fun are parallel or just as good as Rise of Resistance, just as good as Flight of Passage. They're different rides. I'm not saying that they're, you're comparing apples and oranges here, right? But you could make the case if someone said, I think Radiator Springs Racers is my favorite attraction in one of these lands, I wouldn't argue against that, right?
Yeah.
Of the ones listed, that's probably my favorite. I enjoy it better than Rise of Resistance. I like Rise of Resistance, but if you said, Troy, we got one ride, Radiator Springs Racers, Rise of Resistance, I'm probably going to pick Radiator Springs Racers, right? I agree there's a lot of, gift shops there. I wish if I was going to add one thing as an Imagineer, if I was an Imagineer to Cars Land, I think there should be an experience where you walk in and they take a picture of you and they ask you a bunch of questions, like interactive, and it creates you as a character in the Cars world. So you get to, based on your answers, it picks what kind of car you should be, how old, like if I'm born in like I was born in 1971. So maybe it's a car that was made in 1971, and the color, like they ask you what your favorite color is. What do you like to do? And it makes your car. And then if there were or like the Droid Depot, you make the car that you want and it's remote control, right? And you make your own character that you get to take with you.
To that point, though, I think that's cool, but they have that in the Space Mountain gift shop for Tron, and they have that for the Avatar outside of Flight of Passage, and they just closed both of those experiences because nobody was doing them.
And I think it's a bad alignment issue. I think people who ride those attractions aren't looking to do that. But I think if you bring children into Cars Land and you say, hey, we're going to make a car and it's going to be you as a car, I mean, they'll be like, oh, great. Right.
But it can't cost $65. It has to be cheaper than $65 than $100. I think that's a huge part of the issue.
Or more, because people are still buying lightsabers. So the point is, I don't want to talk about, we've been talking a lot about Galaxy's Edge. I don't want to compare Galaxy's Edge to Cars Land, but I do think that the food is, okay. They got a lot of stuff for kids to do. To me, Cars Land and Toy Story Land have a lot in common.
Right.
The only difference is there's no sit-down restaurant in Cars Land like there is Woody's Backyard Barbecue.
Right.
But I think
I do think
similar.
A sit-down
you have a thrill, right? You have a thrill
successful
ride, you have a trackless ride, and you have a sort of spinning, figure eight type ride. So I think they're very similar. So I think they're great for all ages. I think Toy Story Land, Cars Land are wonderful, even if you've got kids in strollers. They're good for the stroller crowd and they're good for the older crowd, especially at night. Character meet and greets, they'll roll out the cars and you can see them. They have the little dance party. That's all fun, but they don't have the constant,
Yeah.
they don't have the characters walking around because there's no characters to walk around. You have to roll them out. So,
What do you think about,
yeah.
what do you think about what I said about how, right, Cars Land wouldn't hit the same if you didn't know the story? Because I feel like that's not something that exists in Toy Story Land or Galaxy's Edge. Like, I think you can enjoy it just the same. Versus Cars Land, I really don't think you can.
I think the story is pretty evident when you get there that everything is a car, right?
I mean, like,
visiting.
I mean, in the sense that Cars Land is Radiator Springs. And if you don't know what Radiator Springs is, how can it possibly be the same experience? Versus in Toy Story Land, like, you can have no idea who Andy is and it's still fine because it's like, oh, you're a toy, like whatever.
Well, if you're not familiar with Cars because you didn't watch the movie or anything, it's like anything else you do at Disney. Does this ride seem fun? I guess it's sort of like anything else. If you don't know the IP well, is there enough here to make it enjoyable for you? So I think there's enough in Cars Land to make it enjoyable? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's perfectly enjoyable regardless of your depth of knowledge of the intellectual property that it's based on. I don't think you have to know the IP to enjoy Cars Land. I don't think you have to know Star Wars to like Galaxy's Edge, like with some of our TikTok viewers chimed in with. Our point was, if you got stroller age kids, what do you do with them? And maybe it's about the vibe and not the ride.
Okay.
You want to stay in California?
We'll stay in California. Campus. Move over to Avengers Campus. I also have quite a few thoughts about Avengers Campus. Similar to Toy Story, I'm going to preface it by saying, like, I obviously am really into Marvel. If you've been listening to the show, you know that I love Marvel. And I was just thrilled, like just truly out of my skin, excited to go to Avengers Campus and see everyone. And so I really enjoyed my time there. Like, I think you and I had a really, really great time. In fact, like, one of the wallpapers in my phone wallpaper circuit is us with Captain America. Okay. I think the story of Avengers Campus, even as a Marvel fan, really falls flat. And I think we talked about this when we talked about California Adventure, but I don't really get it. I mean, like, I know what it is and I get it's like a training facility or whatever. I just don't think that like makes sense in the canon of Marvel. And so if I don't really get it as a fan, I can't imagine understanding it as a non-fan. But the flip side to that is, it's kind of like, this is very similar to what I said about Star Wars. Captain America is a universally recognizable character. Spider-Man, arguably even more so. Iron Man. I think the classic Avengers plus Spider-Man are these like sort of like undeniably recognizable characters, similar to Batman, similar to Superman. So I think you can definitely enjoy yourself in Avengers Campus if you don't know very much about Marvel, because it's like, oh, like there's like Iron Man. That's obviously Iron Man. Maybe you don't know who Ant-Man is. Maybe you don't recognize the Marvels. Maybe you don't even recognize Loki. That's fine. But there are going to be things that you can pick up on that make sense. I think the food in Avengers Campus was not great. I did not like what I had at Pim's Test Kitchen. Did not like the chicken sandwich. Maybe I just got the wrong thing. I don't know. I just got the thing that everyone says to get, and I did not enjoy it. But I think really the main situation with Avengers Campus is the attractions, or rather lack thereof. I think the Spider-Man ride is really fun because of the fact that he's such a recognizable character. I just didn't want to do it more than the 2 times that we did it because it was exhausting. But I do think it's a fine, like, middle of the road attraction. Like, if you have a 5-year-old kid who just loves Spider-Man, they don't care about how well they do on the web slinger. They just want to see Spider-Man, right? And that, I think, works. I think that is effective. I think that's fine. The tower, obviously, is not... It is pretty hit or miss for some people. The theming of the tower is so cool. The Guardians thing is so cool. Can't complain. But it is definitely a thrill ride. I just wish that there was something that was middle of the road thrill that like was not heights based, I guess. I think when they put in this like Stark simulator thing, I think that will really even out this area really well, because this area doesn't feel like a kid's area to me. It feels like it's an area definitely made for adults. Like one of the big draws of this area is the PIM test lab, which is a bar. Like it is a bar, and it takes up a good amount of the space. Again, Marvel isn't exactly a kids franchise. It's not for children. I don't think that this area necessarily caters to children. I just wish that there was more to do. I think if I hadn't been a Marvel fan, I probably wouldn't have loved it as much. But because I'm a Marvel fan, I was all in on the characters and all that.
Well, Mom is not a Marvel fan, and she couldn't have cared less about being at Avengers Campus, right?
But she does care about being in Galaxy's Edge. She does enjoy Galaxy's Edge.
She does. So I agree with you. The food, you don't go to Avengers Campus for food. You don't really go there for attractions. But if you're a little kid and Spider-Man is hugely popular, all the little kids want to see Spider-Man. The Spider-Man character meet and greet is there all day long. And if you love Spider-Man and you're a little kid, you're going to want to ride that Spider-Man shooter thingy. And it's cute. It's fun. But you're right. I mean, we rode it a couple of times. I won't avoid it, but it's fine. I do think that I don't think the Stark flight simulator is going to be for kids. I think that's going to be, I see a lot of nausea, people coming off of that. But I do think the Infinity something or another, the one with the Thanos, the other attraction, I think that one was going to be much more family friendly. I think it's going to be
adding two attractions to Avengers Campus. I did not know that.
And given the shape, the design of the ride vehicle, it's the rumor is it's going to be a lot like the Peter Pan ride that was done in Shanghai or I can't remember where, but it was 3 or 4D, and you're in a vehicle and it's trackless and it takes you around. I think that'll be a good ride for all ages, and I think that's a good addition. You go to Avengers Campus for the characters. Look, Disney knows there's a lack of attractions there, so they're constantly pumping out characters for you to do meet and greets with. So if you're a child, stroller age or older, and you love these characters, it's a great place for you to go because you get to see your heroes, right? Your heroes are there. You love Thor, you're going to see Thor. You love Black Panther, you're going to see Black Panther. You love Captain America, you're going to see Captain America.
Both iterations
you love
of
Scarlet Witch, you're going to see Scarlet Witch. Well, maybe not Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch comes and goes, and they bring out characters that are the flavor of the day. If the only ones that weren't there were Fantastic Four because they were in Magic Kingdom, right?
Because they are not Avengers.
Because they're not Avengers
canonically.
And the story of the Avengers Campus is that it was a training facility that Tony Stark and they made it to the Avengers, came there, blah, blah, blah. So
on a scale of immersive, if you don't know anything about Marvel, you can absolutely skip it.
It would be hard. I think it would be hard. But I would say this. I enjoyed it because I'm a vibe chaser. If you like the vibes, it's a good place to go for vibes and the character interactions if you like that kind of thing. So if you like that, it's going to be on the high end of your list. If you're into rides and attractions, it's not going to be high on your list. It's going to be much lower on your list. It'll be below Toy Story. It'll be below Galaxy's Edge. It'll be below Cars Land. But if you love Marvel and you love seeing the characters, and they will interact with you, I mean, they're very, very good with the interactions, you should go, right? So if you got little kids, it's not a bad place to be. Because there's no pressure either with little kids. There's no pressure to do a whole lot. You can do the whole thing and hang out there. But if your children are looking to ride rides, it's probably not the best place for you. All right. We're going to leave California, go back to Florida. We have one left, Pandora, in the Animal Kingdom. We don't talk a lot about Animal Kingdom.
We don't.
We're talking about Animal Kingdom today. Pandora, home of the secret cup holder. So the challenge is out there. Take a picture. Find the secret cup holder. Take a picture with it. Send it to us, disneyassembly@gmail.com. We might send you a prize, special prize, if you found the secret cup holder. But having said that, Flight of Passage and Navi River Journey, 2 attractions. There aren't any meet and greets in Pandora as far as I know. They don't come out with people
Avatars
to meet.
no.
They have a really good quick service restaurant, Satuli Canteen, highly
They have
rated.
2. Satuli Canteen and the breakfast place. With the name is escaping me, but it's right next to Satuli Canteen.
But the food is pretty good. So I would give it, food wise, you can get a good quick service meal there, right?
Arguably, I would trek from the other side of the park to eat at Satuli Canteen. It's that good.
Now, in terms of immersiveness and things for little kids to do, families of kids of all ages, here's where I land. Flight of Passage is not for the tiniest of kids. So if you're stroller age kids, they're probably not going to get on Flight of Passage. It's a motion simulator. It's 3-dimensional. It's like soaring on steroids, right? It's fun. It's a wonderful experience, but it's not really for little kids. Navi River Journey is just a slow boat ride. I love Navi River Journey. If you got little kids, you can take them on Navi River Journey. They may not have any idea what's going on, but it's a slow little easy boat ride. I remember I was on an attraction with that one time. I got on it one time. There was a child that was scared to death. They were so scared. And the parents were like, it's nothing. And I kept saying, it's okay. If I can do this, you can do it. It's just a slow boat ride. And the kid ended up loving it, right? It's cool to look at. So there is something there that you can ride with little kids. There's something you can do there. It's a little bit more thrilling, more for older kids. They got good food options. No character meet and greets. The land itself is very immersive. The hanging rocks, the floating rocks, the waterfalls, there are great water features in Pandora. We haven't been there at night. I know that at night when it glows, it's more magical. But I would say in the aggregate, I find Pandora, if you were ranking the immersive lands, it doesn't rank as high as Toy Story Land for me. It doesn't rank as high as Galaxy's Edge for me. It doesn't rank as high as Cars Land for me. It's probably neck and neck with Avengers Campus. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's the first of its kind, and I'm not so quick to judge it in that way because, do I like it better than Toy Story? No. Do I like it better than Avengers Campus? No. Cars, Galaxy. I actually could take or leave. I feel like the same way about it and Galaxy's Edge, but in 2 different ways. So, before I get into the 3 main points I wanted to make, I want to address that. It was the first of its kind. It was Disney's first real journey into a land dedicated to one IP. And I think that is obvious when you compare it to the other ones that now exist. It is clearly very different thematically and from an engineering perspective than Galaxy's Edge or Toy Story Land or Cars Land, right? Yeah, Pandora came first, right? Not Cars Land. I'm not losing my mind. Pandora came first.
I don't know. I'd have to do.
When
I'm sure you're on your phone.
Did Pandora? Yeah, because I have the question open. It opened May 27th, 2017. When did Cars Land open?
I don't know.
June 15th, 2012. Okay. It's not the first of its kind. Just kidding. Okay. I take back everything I just said. The things that I want to address about Pandora kind of boil down to 3 things. 1, the design of the park. I don't feel like it's a park that you linger in. In Cars Land, in Toy Story Land, even in Avengers Campus and Galaxy's Edge, you can kind of linger and just kind of walk around and sit down and look at characters or whatever. I don't feel that way about Pandora. And I think it's because there is no outward-facing attraction and there's nothing making up for it. So there are no outward-facing attractions in Avengers Campus or Galaxy's Edge. You can't see the attractions. But Galaxy's Edge has the Millennium Falcon. Avengers Campus has all the characters. The scenery is absolutely gorgeous in Pandora, but there's nothing to do unless you're standing in line for a ride. There's nothing to look at except for the waterfall. And I think to a point, like, you can only look at a Disney waterfall for so long before you're like, oh, wait, like I'm at Disney World. Let me go do other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different than admiring the Millennium Falcon. In terms of attractions, I actually think it's pretty balanced. I wish there was one more. Um, I agree that I don't think Flight of Passage is a ride for stroller age kids because it has a height requirement on it. But Navi River Journey, I think, is like the perfect kids ride. It doesn't have much of a story. You know, it's beautiful, it's quiet, calm, decently long, whatever. And then the food, obviously, like you already talked about, it's fantastic. But the last bit is, you know, what I have been coming at like my angle on this. When we first visited Pandora, we had not seen Avatar. Like, we didn't know a thing about Avatar. I didn't know a thing about Avatar. Like, I didn't know about the Na'vi. Like, I thought they were all just called avatars. Like, I genuinely had no idea. And I was still really able to enjoy every single thing that we did because it was just gorgeous. And I think that, like, you know, something that the other lands don't have that Pandora does is just how beautiful it is. Like, I think Galaxy's Edge is really cool to look at, and I think Toy Story Land is really nostalgic, and I think Cars Land is really, you know, also got that nostalgia to it. Same, you know, Avengers Campus is really cool. Pandora is just beautiful. I mean, come on, like, and it's the attractions there are not necessarily like hit you over the head like Pandora. So I guess I could make I guess all this is to say, like, I think Pandora holds up like against these other four really well. Because I personally know that you can go into that park knowing not a lick of knowledge about the and like the IP and still really truly enjoy that experience. I don't know. I think it arguably like holds up pretty well against Avengers Campus, at least because the food is just better. Like, I'm more likely to eat there anyway. I think Pandora is great. I really enjoy Pandora, and I think it's sort of underrated. I do wish there was more to do. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but I think it also, like, the quaintness adds this intimacy that I think is really necessary for that storytelling, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. But our listeners, we have to find out if it makes sense to them. And they also need to let us know which of these immersive lands we talked about today do they think is the best, especially if you have children of variety of ages, for them to be there and to enjoy. But we also have a new trivia question and all these other things we got to get to. So, Mimi, why don't you take us home? Give us this episode's trivia question, and then let people know how they can get in touch with us.
Of course. This week's question is, finish this quote from Frozen. Some people are worth blank. So if you know the blank in that sentence, or if you have any thoughts, comments, opinions, questions, concerns about this week's episode or our thoughts, please feel free to send us an email, disneyassembled@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Well, not really Twitter. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all at Disney Assembled. But if you guys want to support the show further, the link to our TeePublic and our Patreon and our Buy Us a Dole is all on the website, disneyassembled.com. Go check it out. Thank you guys so much for continuing to interact with our videos on TikTok. I really enjoy it, even when you're telling me to chill out and that I'm overreacting about Toy Story Land. I love it. I love when y'all comment on our videos. So continue doing that. That is my favorite way for you guys to support the show.
Yeah, fantastic. My favorite way for you to support the show, of course, is to tell your friends about it. Leave us that rating and review, which would be fantastic because it helps other people find our show. And it helps us create more joy. Because remember, that's what we do. What do we say at the beginning of every episode? We're here to create joy. Right?
And share our love for all things Disney.
For all things Disney. We also have a YouTube channel. We've been putting a lot of our stuff that's on TikTok. We also upload it as YouTube Shorts. So if you're on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, look for us, Disney Assembled. Hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. And share the show with your friends. We think they'll enjoy it as well. All right, Mimi, do you want to, I know we have this little bit of delay because we're not sitting across from each other, but should we try the virtual high five? Would we try it? Here's my hand going to the camera.
Going
There,
to the
virtual
camera
high five.
and high five.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a delay there, but it's all good. All right. Ladies, gentlemen, Disney fans of all sorts, we hope that this episode brought a smile to your face, some extra magic to your day, and that very, very important sprinkle of pixie dust to your week. Thank you so very much for listening. And until next time,
See you real soon.